Mama and her sister Margaret, Mrs. Margaret Oputa, priding themselves that their mother was able to open an account for them in London. At that time, in the 40s and 30s, in Mama and her husband's days, Mama was very rich. And it's something she acquired from her mom, who was also extremely rich in her days. Being the first Igbo doctor will tell you that she was a smart woman that was determined to go to school abroad. At that time, I can imagine the kind of discrimination she must have gone through, she must have faced to become a doctor.
As a black woman.
As a black woman. And not just black woman, from Africa. She used to feed Biafran army. She would supply them food. When Portharcourt fell, Mama actually went to the market to buy food for Biafran soldiers. And that was one of the reasons she lost most of her properties in Portharcourt. Mama was the sole representative of UAC Manchester. They will produce the abada and they will send it to her. She is the sole distributor in Africa. Mama's richness and the mayor's richness all originated from Mama's mother, Madam Ruth Onumon, who co-opted her daughter into the palm oil business with UAC company of those days. That's not surprising. After being the first mayor of Portharcourt, naming a street after him, is that an error? No, it's not. It's the right thing to do. So it's true. Actually, he had died when the street was established because Mama was one of the first people that built on this street. The war really affected their wealth. And consolidation in everything you do matters. Maybe time did not permit them to consolidate most of their wealth. And if wealth not consolidated, will fly away. As for being wealthy, they were wealthy in their own days. They were very wealthy. There is no village in Oguta that did not benefit from them directly or indirectly.
This is Creative Law TV. We are live and direct in Portharcourt here. So, and right now we are at Nzimiro Street. So everywhere here is Nzimiro Street, and it was named after a great man, a legend, Richard Nzimiro, the first mayor of Portharcourt, and the wife, Mary Nzimiro, who was the richest woman in those days, and also their daughter, Priscilla Nzimiro, the first Igbo woman to become a doctor. You understand? The story is huge, man. So today we are in Portharcourt right now to meet the family, one of the family members who will tell us more about this family. The inner stories a lot of people don't know about. So we are going to unveil it for you people. So let's go inside here. The woman is a doctor, and we are going to go inside the place and meet her, and she will tell us more about Nzimiro family, the great family. Do you know what it means that one family produced one of the richest women ever? One family produced the first Igbo doctor. One family produced the first mayor of Portharcourt. One family. Nzimiro family. Guys, this is massive, man. This is great. This is massive. So let's go and hear from the woman directly.
I'm Dr. Mrs. Joy Dodogba Nzimiro. Well, like I said, I'm a wife. And everything I'll say here was told to me by Mama herself because I lived with her. And I also had some stories from other sources, but I will only talk about the verified ones that came from Mama herself. In Mama and her husband's days, Mama was very rich, and it's something she acquired from her mom, who was also extremely rich in her days. I do remember one time, Mama and her sister Margaret, Mrs. Margaret Oputa, priding themselves that their mother was able to open an account for them in London. At that time, in the 40s and 30s, you know, that she was able to open an account for them, for each of them. I remember Mrs. Margaret Oputa telling Mama, I hope my money is intact, that you have not used it to trade as usual. And it was very funny. Everybody laughed that day. Yes. So Mama's richness and the mayor's richness all originated from Mama's mother, Madam Ruth Onmon, who co-opted her daughter into the palm oil business with UAC company of those days. And at the same time, the mayor himself was educated and was a clerk with the same company. I guess that's where both of them got close to each other, even before the marriage. Mama was great. When I say great, she has presence. The aura, her charisma, and physical presence was also there because she was a tall and beautiful woman. When she comes into a room, you will feel her presence without her saying a word because of her charisma. Yeah. And she was kind, a philanthropist. She was ready to help anyone succeed in life. You now wonder how much more she would have helped her husband to succeed in his career and all that. She will go out of her way to make one comfortable. She feeds the less privileged. She used to feed the less privileged. She used to feed Biafran army. She would supply them food. When Portharcourt fell, Mama actually went to the market to buy food for Biafran soldiers. And that was one of the reasons she lost most of her properties in Portharcourt. Because by the time she came back, we that were living with her, we too, we had taken what we can carry and ran away and locked up the place. How did we know that she went to buy foodstuff? When we came back, since we couldn't go any further, when night was coming, we came back to the house and saw the foodstuff that was poured on the floor. We knew that they had come back to pick us up, but we were not there. So they now removed all the foodstuff and maybe carried a few things from her driver's house. Because her main house was locked, we had the key. We had the key.
So all those things during the war?
Yeah, during Biafran War. These two people loved each other so much. They don't do things separately. If the husband is doing one thing, he must have gotten approval from Mama. Not just mouth approval, financial approval as well. Because she was the trader. He was the mayor. So he has to be in the office. But she was the one going out there to do her trading in textiles. Actually, they even established a singlet factory in Portharcourt here, where they were producing a lot of singlet, men's singlet. So that Mama was very buoyant when it comes to business and trading. She trades in anything that will give her money. After all, it runs in her family. Her mother was also a big palm oil trader. And the school you are talking about, the PMGS in Oguta, was established by both Mama and her husband, not any single one of them. It would be unfair to single one person out because these two people know what the other person was doing. And they established it. It was named William Wilberforce from the beginning. It was after their daughter's death, Priscilla's death, that the name was changed to Priscilla Memorial Grammar School. Mama herself on her own established a girls' school, a girls' secondary school, the Nzimiro Memorial Girls' School, the Nzimiro Girls for short. That was only 2 years old when the war broke out. And that was the discontinuing of that school. Mama was the sole representative of UAC Manchester. They will produce the abada and they will send it to her. She is the sole distributor in Africa. And in fact, she gives them designs of the different types of abada that they will produce. You know, this abada has names. Igbo women will tell you this better. There is Aziza, there is Sempuroka, and there are a lot of names that Mama designed this cloth and call them names and give to them to produce, and they will now give it to her to sell in Nigeria. She was the sole distributor at that time.
So she was the first woman to sell abada?
Oh, if I'm not mistaken, yes. At least in Nigeria though, I think she also extended her business priorities to places like Japan, where she dealt with coral beads, to India, where she will get George this George wrapper. Yes. She was at the forefront of all these merchandise.
All this is happening before the war.
Before the war.
So which kind? How was Mama so smart? Like, did she go to school?
Yes, Mama went to school. She went to school up to, you know, in those old days, they don't let women to go too far in education. There are certain level a woman should read up to, and that was just good for her. Mama can write beautiful letters. She used to write. I still have some of her letters. You know, somebody who is not educated will not be able to write. Mama was very educated to the level her period allowed for women. Mama had one biological daughter, but she has sons that her husband had, and she adopted these sons and treated them, took care of them like hers, even after the husband's death. Yes. She sent all their boys to America single-handedly. And she was paying their school fees right from Nigeria.
So, your husband was one of them?
My husband, Richard Okocha Nzimiro, was the first son. And she did all she could for him. I'm very much aware of that. And if he were to be here, he would testify to that. She sent him to America in 1966, where he studied business admin with a master in marketing.
So, and the daughter? What about the daughter?
The only daughter, Priscilla Nzimiro, was sent to Europe, Glasgow to be specific, to study medicine. And she graduated with a medical degree. But unfortunately, God's calling came early for her. And she died before her father and her mother. That was very painful. And that was why they renamed the secondary school they established from William Wilberforce to Priscilla Memorial Grammar School.
So what about Mama's involvement in politics?
Mama was a great politician. She was. She was among the women leader of former or defunct or whatever they say, NCNC. She was friends with Zeke and his wife. She was friends with Emma Okpara. At that time, the premier for Eastern region. She was friends with Margaret Ekpo, who was a very strong politician at that time. I don't know if you guys have heard of Margaret Ekpo, from, I think, Cross River. She knew a lot of political women. In fact, they were the political women wing of NCNC. And she was at the forefront of it, including finances and all that. Because all these things take a lot of financing. And Mama was capable. So she was at the forefront. Madam Ruth Onomonu brought Anglican Church to Oguta with the help of Mama and her husband. Her husband was the Nzimiro family. We are primarily Catholics. But because of this, we are Anglicans today. Our husband has to switch to Anglican to please his mother-in-law and his wife. So today, we are all Anglicans. That's Mama and the mayor's children. But there are still some Nzimiros that are Catholics. Yeah.
So, Nzimiro.
They also gave the church land to establish the church very well. So they actually sacrificed for St. Mary's Anglican Church in Oguta. That's not surprising. After being the first mayor of Portharcourt, naming a street after him, is that an error? No, it's not. It's the right thing to do. So it's true. Actually, he had died when the street was established because Mama was one of the first people that built on this street. She was one of the first. At that time, all these places were bush. But I was told both of them built one earlier, which was demolished by Mama, and she rebuilt it.
Okay. So the legacy was naming the one of the streets in his name.
Yes.
And it was by the government.
And it was by the government. There was a time, maybe, let me not say that. It's okay. With the state's creation and everything, and all the emotions and the sentiments that came with it, there was a time, there was a little bit agitation. They want to change all the streets, name with Igbo names and all that. But he survived. His son survived when they realized that was one of those that made Portharcourt Garden City. He was one of them. So the Nzimiro Street survived that agitation.
So, Mom, you married into the Nzimiro family. What would you say?
I'm privileged. I'm honored. Yeah. You're interviewing me now. Would you have?
Yes.
Would you have interviewed me if I did not marry into this family? Yeah. So I'm very, very privileged and honored.
All right. Where did all those money go? Because they did business that time. They made the woman was recognized as one of the most influential women those days.
Wealthiest woman in Africa.
One of the wealthiest women. So where did all those businesses, all those money, what happened to them?
Good question. War. Civil war happened to them. They had Mama and her husband, the mayor and his wife, had a good number of houses in Portharcourt. But they all became abandoned property. This particular one, this for Nzimiro, was released by General Mark when he was the chairman of abandoned properties immediately after the war in Portharcourt, in Rivers. So the war really affected their wealth. And consolidation in everything you do matters. Maybe time did not permit them to consolidate most of their wealth. And if wealth not consolidated will fly away. It's just the truth. As for being wealthy, they were wealthy in their own days. They were very wealthy. There is no village in Uguta that did not benefit from them directly or indirectly, because the school they established, they were giving scholarship to as many boys as possible that can attend the school. That one, Uguta people know about that, and they still talk about it, and they are grateful for that. Yes. He was giving scholarship to a lot of people, a lot of people that are very buoyant now were those who benefited from going to Priscilla Memorial Grammar School on scholarship.
Okay. So, can you say something about the doctor who was the first medical doctor in Igbo land? Because that name, first medical doctor in Igbo land, is very huge. It was after her that you people begin to...
I know. She paved the way. She opened the door. She showed us the way and laid the foundation. But guess what? I don't think I'm qualified to talk about her, because she died even before I was born. Though, from what I heard, she was a very good woman, just like her mom, and she was very close with the mom. Very, very close. And being the first Igbo doctor will tell you that she was a smart woman that was determined to go to school abroad. At that time, I can imagine the kind of discrimination she must have gone through, she must have faced to become a doctor.
As a black woman.
As a black woman. And not just black woman, from Africa. So she must have gone through a lot, but yet she won. She withstood all those things and became who she was. That's a very good thing to emulate. Apart from Priscilla, Dr. Priscilla Nzimiro, they have 3 sons. The first one being Ogbuago Richard Okosha Nzimiro, who happened to be my husband, my late husband, followed by Ogbuago Ifediora Nzimiro, is in the US. Ogbuago Nnamdi Nzimiro, also in the US. And all of them have had their children and family, and they are also grandparents, all of them. And they are doing well. All the grandchildren and children, they are all doing well. What's left is for God to continue to bless them. And everything will, the name Nzimiro is not going to die soon. It won't even die, not to talk of soon. It will be propagated. And may God help all of us in Jesus' name.
Amen.